With. We can't even remember what we set our sights to accomplish. And the reason that occurs largely is because our goals aren't attached to the bigger picture vision. We set goals that just because, in setting goals that are actually relevant to the mission that we're on in life. And that's really the intention and purpose behind a powerful vision, is it drives you to set goals with intention, and it drives you to set goals and create a business plan that's meaningful to you and plays a part in that bigger picture. And so that's why we're going to spend the first few minutes really talking about the importance and the power in vision. And then we're going to migrate to talking about the importance and power in reverse engineering your goals. So when I think of vision, I don't isolate vision purely to business. I think if you're doing this for yourself personally, you need to think about the whole picture in your personal vision. We don't just work for the sake of working. We can be passionate about our jobs, but we have lives outside of that. We have families. We have things that are important to us that we reinvest those dollars in. And that's really the intention, I think, in creating a vision as well, is to see the whole picture, not just your work, but what's your vision personally for yourself and your life. We created in Southwestern Consulting, we created a ideal wheel for self-reflection. And I love these factors for consideration. So we look at the career that you're building. We look at your social life. We ask you how things are going financially. It's good to self-assess how you're getting along with family, and what your physical health is, what your mental health is, and how you're doing spiritually. These all play a role on that ideal wheel. And, maybe to you as an individual, certain things are more important than others. But a big part of life is contemplating what your version of balance is. It's creating and making sure that you're not totally suffering in a certain area because you're forgetting that life is a bigger pie than just your career. And so what this assessment is geared for is you actually rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on each of these small items within the categories. And then you total it and divide it by 10 to give yourself an average point value in each area of life. And this is just a way to simplify. It's a way of simplify self-reflection and to kind of create a point system around the different aspects that are important to creating a personal balance in life. And then after you've scored each of these areas on the actual ideal wheel, you can map it out. And so you score yourself in each area, and then you connect the dots, and you get a chance to see how round your wheel is. And if your wheel isn't round, like a bike wheel, your road to success is going to be a little bit bumpier. And remember, success isn't just about financial success. Success is a bigger picture. Success is, achieving your vision in life. And so it can be easy to forget a lot of these things and get really unbalanced as a wheel and have kind of a bumpy road overall. But this is here to remind you. It's here for self-reflection, and it's here to give you a chance to score and give yourself a starting point. My personal trainer years ago clued me into the importance of self-reflection before setting goals. He said, if you don't know your body fat percentage, if you haven't weighed yourself on the scale, if you haven't taken, measurements of your biceps and your arms, if you haven't done detailed assessing before you start your fitness journey, it's going to be harder because the last thing you're actually going to see a change in is your body weight. But if we're regularly measuring your body fat percentage, if we're checking in on your score in these other areas that are a lot more measurable and controllable, then you're going to feel success earlier, and you're going to see growth, and you're going to get excited, and it's going to help your stick rate in the gym. And that's also true with a life vision in each of these areas. By creating a point score for each aspect of life, it gives us kind of a framework, a starting point to say, it doesn't really matter that it's so bumpy right now. What matters is what you do with that and how you want to scale those different areas of life in 2021. It becomes part of your vision. So if you want that assessment, email Jen, and Jen I'll make sure she's provided that tool, and she can forward that to you. If you're interested, you can email her directly to get that. But here's some principles that I just want to talk about when it comes to vision and goal setting. Number one, without vision, people perish, right? When you don't have a strong vision for your life, it was a biblical reference there, but without a vision, they say that people will perish. So that's true for if you run a sales team, if you run an organization underneath you, if they don't have a vision, if you haven't cast a vision for them, then the motivation is gone and people will leave. Loyalty in a culture is very much based on vision and then being able to live into it. Another principle is that you bring about what you think about, right? So whatever is front of mind for you is likely to occur. And that can be even the bad things. If you overthink about all the bad things that you're trying to avoid, sometimes you end up bringing them about. You don't even realize it. So a vision is important to keep the positive image of what you're chasing. The more vivid and detailed, and this is true for vision as it is for goals, the more vivid and detailed it is on paper, the more likely it is to come to fruition. My first sales job ever was knocking on doors, selling educational books door to door during my college summers. It's part of the way I paid for school. And the junior year of college, I actually did hire a coach to actually help me sell more and perform more. I had a sales organization that I recruited during the school year. We had about 40 students and we were getting ready for the summer and I hired a coach. And the one thing he spent a ton of time on was vision and goal setting. And I told him, I said, Dustin, like, get me to the good stuff. Like, I want to know about how to ask for referrals. Like, I want to know all the technical stuff. That's what's going to help me have a better year. And he said, no, you will figure all of that out if you have enough of a fire in your belly to do it. And that totally correlates to your goals and vision. He said, when I broke the company record, the 150-year company record, my coach had broken this record and made $100,000 in 2.5 months knocking on doors in personal profit. He said, I wrote a 50-page document was my business plan for breaking a company record that year. He said that took weeks to write and to develop a 50-page document. It was basically a book on what I was going to accomplish. So if you're really fired up about 2021 or you want to be fired up about 2021, write a 50-page vision and goal setting document on why you're going to crush it. And number one is make sure it's something that actually gets you excited. Because for him, breaking a record was really motivating. Focus on being instead of having. We're going to talk about this really quickly here in a second. A lot of people, when they're setting goals and creating a vision, think of all the things they want to have, and then they kind of work backwards from that to figure out who they need to be to get it. And that is a not very successful way of creating vision and setting goals. So we'll take a little closer to that. But these are some of the core principles that we operate on when we're creating vision. So with that, let's get into the details. Let's talk about this. Be, do, have. We just mentioned a lot of people do this backwards. They ask themselves, or they look around and they see a peer of theirs that has a really sweet car they drive. They have a big house. It seems like everything's just rocking and rolling for this person. They say, I want to be like this person. I want to have what they have is actually what they're saying. And so then they look and they see what this person's doing to have those things. They start to try and emulate and do the things that person's doing. And what they're trying to do is they're working backwards to try and be that person. And the example that always comes to my mind is the Sports Illustrated article years ago on Jerry Rice that illustrated this. Jerry Rice, just an amazing overall athlete in the NFL, had this workout routine that was so intense. Athletes, not just football athletes, but athletes from different sports all over the country would come to Jerry Rice and they would try and complete his workout circuit. And do you know how many people actually were able to complete his workout circuit? Zero other people could do Jerry's workout. They all just got totally blown out before they even completed it. And it kind of stemmed from this idea. They all looked at Jerry and said, man, I want to have what Jerry has. He's number one in the league. Like, he's got all this fame. He's worth more. So let me see what this guy does. I'm going to try and do that. I'm going to try and be Jerry. No one could be Jerry except for Jerry. So the proper way of thinking in vision creation and goal setting is you have to start with who you want to be in 2021. Start with who you want to be. Because when you can define who you want to be, the haves will come naturally. It's a lot harder if you think of yourself as someone that's lazy to motivate yourself to do the things that'll get you to have all the stuff that you want, right? But if you redefine yourself as someone who is motivated and inspired, who wakes up, who never shows up late to meetings, and you redefine who you're going to be as a person, then the doing comes naturally and the haves are a result. I've heard this quote quite a bit in recent years, but I heard it for the first time about 10 years ago, that when someone asked Michelangelo how he carved such a beautiful angel out of marble, Michelangelo said, well, I didn't carve it out of marble. The angel was already there. I simply released it from the stone. And it's that thought process that we go through when we think in the terms of be, do, have. When you're being first, you realize that you already have all the equipment that you need to be successful. And then naturally the doing comes and you'll have the results are what you'll have from being that way. So define who you want to be as a person in 2021, because who you're one day becoming is who you are right now. And if you don't change the habits today, then there's no reason that 20 years from now, life will be any different or your habits will be any different. From this, we create a vision board, and we've helped a ton of CEOs of actually very large Fortune 500 companies create vision boards for themselves. And some of them fought us on it. They're like, this is the dumbest thing. I don't want to cut paper magazines up and put it on a board. That's just silly. And but you know what? Ultimately, that same CEO who said that months later after we had him do this, had everyone in his entire company do it. And he said, this has been transformational for our culture, and it's made me a lot more energized and happy. When you do a vision board, the incorrect way is to simply slap a bunch of things that you want to have in life. The purpose, a good vision board should be a compendium of symbols that represent who you want to be. They should serve as reminders of how you ought to show up every day and the legacy that you're going to leave behind. And then it's okay to have a car or a boat on there as well. It's okay to have the watch that you want. Those are things that are okay to have. You just don't want them to dominate the vision that you have, because you need reminders of what you're working towards. But we all need much bigger reminders of who we need to be every single day to make the impact that we want to have. So create a vision board before the end of this year that's defining and helping remind you of who you're going to be in 2021 through symbols and imagery, because that's the language of the mind. Once we craft a vision, now we can start talking about how to back end that vision into goals. And before I move into this, I just want to take a quick pause and ask, any questions on be, do, have, or vision that you guys have before we move into this next piece. Yes.
I have a question, Adam. So how often should you redo a vision board? Like, I think I did mine like 4 or 5 years ago. Like, what do you suggest?
How do you read?
How many times? Like, how often would you redo a vision board? Like, if you've done one 5 years ago, it's obviously probably time.
Great
Redo
question.
one every year or what?
I'll answer this with a story. I was at our CEO's house a year and a half ago in Nashville. We go up to his office. He just built this really cool house that he'd been dreaming about for his whole life, and kind of the countryside. And we go up to his office, and he has there a giant Rolodex. I mean, if you remember those old card Rolodexes with people's names on it, it was like a 3-ring thing on people's desks. He had like a monster version of that. But on the Rolodex was these cardboard vision boards that he had created over the last 15 to 20 years. And he said, I asked him about it. I said, what's this giant thing on your desk? He said, let me show you. And he flips. And with each flip, he shows me all the things that he's achieved on each vision that he's created. And he probably had like 8 to 10 on that 3-ring binder. Wow. And he's only maybe, if he watches this, I'll be embarrassed, maybe 39, 40 right now.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yeah. So, renewal as much as you like, as your vision changes, because it changes for all of us, right? And we accomplish things, and we need to renew what's part of our vision.
I'm gonna do it. I set goals with the kids every year, like New Year's Day. It's just kind of a custom that we just sit around and like, you can't do anything New Year's Day except be home, right? So we're gonna do that, and I'm gonna do vision boarding this year. My son has already done it because my son coaches with Southwestern, which I'm gonna put a plug really quick in the middle of this webinar. Y'all's student coaching program, it's ideal for what, 8th grade to like 12th grade, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So my son is 9th grade, and I just have to say, I mean, he's already been going through it's a super instrumental year. And of course you don't know it until you slaps you between the eyes as a parent. And if he didn't have the coaching, I don't know. I think it would have happened differently. Like the coach that he's had, Will, is amazing. And I've just been super happy with the program. I mean, on the first call, he'd already done a vision board. He's done positive self-talk. We were on our way to school the other day, and he breaks out his voice. He goes, "Mom, I need to make a voice memo. Will you just listen to it?" I was like, "Sure." And he was like talking affirmations to himself to send to his coach. I'm like, what 15-year-old does this? This is amazing. So talk about vision boarding. Like, I've seen the changes in my kid in the last 6 months. So I know you didn't plan to talk about this or get a free commercial, but I'm going to give it because student coaching with Southwestern is super amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been super cool. We have, around 50 kids in the program now. And I would say at this stage, probably almost every one of them has a vision board hanging up in their room, What's your
capacity? Like, what's your vision for how many you want to have in that? Like that could change the planet right there.
Yeah, we want to have a couple thousand in 2021. We have really big goals for expansion, and we're rapidly, and we've got really good onboarding systems we built to certify our coaches, and we've got really huge talent pool of brilliant young coaches that are in their 20s but very accomplished. So I think we can manage it, and but it's really we have a great start. So thanks for loaning us your son in 2020. It's been awesome to work with.
I had said I wanted him to be the guinea pig of the program, and in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a past client just quick video and just send it to him and just say, listen, y'all, this is off the cusp. I'm trying not to spam you, but here's the deal. If you have grandkids or kids that are this age, the best thing I did all year was for my kid.
Super. Yeah,
I'm going to send it out.
We would love that.
I'm going to send it out to my sphere right now. It's going to happen. Okay, continue. I want to hear more about personal goals.
Yeah. So vision it's a big part for young people. It's a big part for us, in any phase of life, with a strong vision, it drives the right action and behaviors. So, this Harvard study is really interesting. And I'll slap this on the screen real quick because I love, the concept that's implied here. When it comes to goal setting, this study covered a statistically large enough group of people for it to matter. I can't remember the exact number, but 27% of the people that they interviewed had given no thought to goals at all on their first interview. And they were interviewing people that were young adults at the time. 60% had given little thought. Primarily financially is really financial was the measuring stick largely for a lot of this. 10% had a good idea of what they want, but nothing written down. And only 3% had concrete written goals out of the pool of people they interviewed. So in follow-up, a decade later, 27% were barely existing fiscally. 60% were living in modest means. 10% were moderately successful, and 3% were highly successful financially. And to the point, and here's where, without getting in, we simplified this for time, but to give you some perspective, of the 3% and 10%, both had the same education, but 3% had put their goals in writing, and the 10% had not. So the 3% that had written goals had proved to outperform everyone else 10 to 1 or more financially. So to me, it's one illustration of the power of written goals. And there's a lot of psychology and reason behind it. But I would say one of the biggest ones is when you just make a promise to yourself verbally. Unfortunately, most human beings are not great at keeping self promises. We break them often to ourselves. So your brain reads that as, well, you said you're going to do that, but you've said that a lot in your life and haven't. So I'm going to read this as it's a negotiable item. But when you write something down, it becomes concrete. Your brain reads it differently. Usually the things that you write down and really commit to actually happen, and it puts your brain to work to ensure that it does. So writing your goals is one of the most fundamental, important things that you can do before you start the new year. So this aspect of goal setting, I don't need to spend much time on for this group, because you should all be very familiar with SMART goal setting, but I will spend time on a few of these items. Number one, it needs to be specific. If you're in a real estate practice or a mortgage practice, right, you have the opportunity to reverse engineer your business goals down to the kind of conversations that you need to be having on a daily, weekly basis. It becomes more mathematical and scientific if you're good at tracking your activity and your metrics, because you have ratios that you can base your goals on that are your ratios. But the more specific you get and concrete in the actions that you can control that lead to the results, the better. And that's also a mix of what the M stands for, which is measurable, right? Goals that you can measure are critical. And we look at activities can be measured, right? The number of touches that you get, the number of showings that you have, the number of FISBAs. I mean, we could go on and on between all the different things that you can measure, track, but making sure you have measurable, specific, controllable actions that you can do on not just on an annual basis, but that you've reversed it to a daily and monthly focus, a daily and weekly focus. A stands for attainable. Now, if you're watching this and you're the kind of person that typically sets goals that are way out of reach, like you're the lofty goal setter and you have a strong history of almost never achieving the goal that you set, change, right? That means this year, be the person that sets reasonable goals, lower the threshold, but really, really commit to it. So if you're the person that typically overshoots and doesn't really hit home, be more attainable this year in what you accomplish. Be more mathematical and be more reasonable with yourself. Now, there are people, and you might be one of them on this call, that typically sets goals beneath what you're capable of because you don't like not hitting goals. And so you're hyper realistic with your goals to the point where you probably lowball yourself. If that's you, then you need to up your margin and set a stretch goal. So do the opposite of what your inclination is this year. But either way, make sure that you feel like it's still attainable. R is relevant. This is why we talked about vision before we talked about goals. A relevant goal means it's relevant because it's relevant to who you are and what you're trying to accomplish in life. I've seen it happen too many times where a company said, hey, we need your business plan. And someone just slaps a business plan together because they have to, because someone else asked, because it's an expectation, or they just do it because they heard it's good to do. And so they set some meaningless goals. If the goal isn't meaningful enough to you, you will forget it and you will not accomplish it. Relevant means it is relevant to other aspects of your life. You've emotionally tied it in to your purpose and your intention, and the goal has meaning. T stands for time-based. That means we have to be time specific. A year is great. It's fine to set an annual goal. It's a good thing to set an annual goal. But by the time you're done with your goal setting and business plan, you should have daily goals. You should have weekly goals. You should have quarterly goals. Getting granular and getting hyper-focused on a daily, weekly action is what's going to help you achieve the bigger picture. A year gives you a ton of time to procrastinate what you accomplish. A day gives you a lot less time, which is why it's really good to have time-based specific goals of when you want to accomplish things. So here are some principles of goal setting, and then we'll talk about how to empower the goals that you set to make sure they happen. Principle number 1, Critical success factors are the activities that lead to results. That's our lingo. We call them critical success factors. We do that because we believe they belong in every aspect of life. Jen mentioned a second ago that her son is in student coaching, and we started a youth coaching division back in October of 2019, building a program for one-on-one coaching for young people. And the reason I bring this back up is because it's been an interesting experiment in understanding that as a business owner, as a sales professional, we understand setting goals and reversing them to the controllable factors that we can do something about. And yet a lot of us don't apply that to the rest of our lives. What we've done with young people is we found out what their critical success factors are, their GPA that they can reverse engineer into how many hours they need to study per day, the physical fitness goals they have, and reverse engineering that to how many days in the gym or how many workouts or runs they need to do per week, right? We can have social goals. We can have financial goals. When you get the goal reversed to the controllable factors you can do something about, that's what we call your critical success factors. Those are the things that you do daily and weekly to ensure that the result happens. You can't control the result, but you can influence it by doing the things you can control. You can't expect unless you inspect. Another killer of achieving goals is when people set a goal and then never look at it again. And so if you're going to expect yourself to accomplish something, you need reflection periods scheduled into your week, every week. Some of you may do that on a monthly basis, which is great, but that gives you a lot of weeks to screw up before you catch yourself. Some of you don't do it until the end of the quarter, which gives you even more time to screw up before you reflect and check back in. And yet some of you won't check in until the end of the year, and you wonder why you don't accomplish what you set out to every year. You need reflection points and inflection points on a weekly basis to check in on yourself, to see if you're tracking along the controllables that you set for yourself. And it gives you time then to switch gears and help the next week be a higher performance week than the week prior. Reverse engineer your goals in a daily activity. We already talked about that as a principle and a concept, and that's really what we're going to dig into next. So I know we have a few other folks here live with us as well. Any questions about those principles or SMART goal setting before we move into applying accountability and strategy to your business plan? Jen.
I have one. And if the people on want to just chat, I can read it in the chat. But so that's something you're working with me on. So I'm assuming other people struggle with it as well, because I'm coached a lot, but I struggle with stopping. Like, I get overwhelmed just thinking like, oh my God, I've got to look at this every week. Like, I just don't stop enough to do it. What are some tactics for someone to get started if let's say they're one of the yearly people? What are like some simple tactics that you find people have success with to review things? Like just something simple.
Yeah, great question. Again, I think that literally having a scheduled time, if you have an assistant, that assistant or support staff member can be in part accountability partner for you. And so having a weekly meeting with your assistant as a point of self-reflection around not just their job, but also, if you're accomplishing your metrics that you set for yourself, that can be a great way to systematize reflection. If you don't have an assistant, the biggest thing is what you're looking at on the screen, which is accountability. I can share ideas all day long on how you can, create accountability into your calendar. But the reason people do it and start a new habit is because they couldn't put accountability around that new habit until it becomes a habit, right? And Jen's one of the best practitioners of this. I mean, this is why she coaches so many people, is she becomes that accountability for them. It's the same thing for me. And just like Jen has a coach, I have a coach, right? It's just, none of us are beyond having accountability around new habits that we form. And so I think that, maybe a simple self-plug here is get a coach. But that's only because...
That's why I coach with you every 2 weeks. Like, you don't let me forget stuff. And I'm like, well, you keep bugging me about it. And I do the same with my coaching students, so at least I'm doing it every 2 weeks, but it's hard. I mean, it is hard. I'm just not one of those journal every day and review my yearly goals. I will tell you though, for the people on the call, what has helped me is starting last year, I do my yearly goals, like the thing that you went up in the beginning about the 7 areas of life. I put 2 things in each area that I'm going to do this year, and I laminate it, and it's on my bathroom mirror, because then I can look at it every day, just to at least wake me out of consciousness.
I think that's awesome. And of a lot of the people I've seen, you have more data and tracking going on in your business than most people I know in mortgage. I mean, you're on it with the details. And so I think that's a big area of growth for a lot of folks, is even just getting in the habit of tracking their numbers so they have math to use when they're doing their goals. So tracking is big, putting accountability, and it can be a coach. It can, you can leverage your assistant a little bit in that way as well. And, be specific and be, set quantifiable things. And then, something that I know Jen's done before, I've done it, is don't just set deadlines, but give yourself personal victories and awards for doing new habits as well. It's not just the stick, but the carrot. So something you can reward yourself with at the end of each week if you've accomplished your milestones. We don't need other people to set incentives for you. You can set incentives for yourself. And it can be a fun way to turn some of the harder aspects that all of our jobs have into more of a game. And then just making sure you have that compelling why that drives you to perform on that goal, right? So just being goal oriented, and I just want to bring this up because this is important to me. Peter Drucker has this quote: efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. And I see people that actually are quite good at goal setting, but they actually inadvertently set their goals around the wrong things. They are very efficient people, but they're not very effective. And so, getting a second set of eyes on your business plan, having someone else look at it to add perspective, to make sure that what you're reverse engineering, you're not just going through the motions of like every year I reverse, I have these activities that I set for myself that I either do or don't do. Sometimes there's something that's missing in that whole component, a strategy. The first quarter, you're a system that you need to build, that you need to hire and delegate to an assistant. And so you need to make that one of your targets for the first quarter, is to onboard a new team member. Then we forget that those actually fit the criteria of goal setting. And so we don't actually put goals around some of those other strategies. We're focused on the wrong things that are going to just keep us spinning our wheels. So effectiveness is doing the right thing, right? To make sure we do that, critical success factors, these are the things that we look at. It's your responsibility to add accountability to these activity standards, or it's also your coach's responsibility if you have one. But accountability with your family, with your peers, and with your leaders, the more people you rope into it. Listen, you hear the word accountability, and a lot of us flinch at that. And when I hired a personal trainer, it sucks. It sucks having someone there. You can't break that promise as easily as you break a promise to yourself when someone's expecting you to show up. And it's painful. They push you harder than you'd ever push yourself. But the results at the end of the day are, you just can't argue with it, right? The more people you let them know what your goals are and you ask for it, right? It's different when it's your boss telling you got to do something. That's not the accountability we're talking about. We're talking about self-volunteered accountability. You're choosing to put accountability around the things that are important in your life. And if you really want to change an aspect of your life, put accountability around it and watch it change, right? Took me 5 years of not having a personal trainer. The moment I decided to pull the trigger, even though I knew it was going to be awful in the beginning, it took me 3 months to have better results than 5 years. Imagine doing that for your business. Imagine doing that for any area of your life that you've struggled. 5 years, 3 months. Imagine if I had made that decision 5 years ago, right? Where I would be in personal health. So know your critical success factors, and then take and put accountability around it 360 degrees, and invite as many people as possible to do that. Jen, you want to just share really quick, like what are some ways outside of coaching that you've put accountability around some of the things that you've set to do?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've just coached for so long. I mean, I have like in the workout stuff, I have a trainer. I got a virtual trainer right now. I mean, I know myself well enough. Like I would say know your weak points and know what you are good and not good at. And like working out, like especially right now, if I didn't have her FaceTiming me to work out at 6 a.m., I would not do it. I would not. On the just little simple things throughout your day. I use my phone timer, like simple stuff. Like I'll set it when I know that I have to be on the next call in 7 minutes. I know that I'm going to get distracted. So I whip up the phone timer and I put it on 7 minutes or 6 minutes, really a minute before. Like little things throughout your day, like little timers, little buzzers, because we all get, I mean, a squirrel's living on my shoulder. I don't know about yours, but so just those little accountabilities and utilizing the people around you. Like if you do have an assistant, spruce up on how you can delegate better, to let that person really help you. So around me, I mean, I just feel that I'm more productive and better at doing what I'm doing. So I surround myself with people that are better at my weak parts than I am. I have a housekeeper. She holds me accountable to, the stuff she holds me accountable to. I've got a trainer. I've got you. I've got, I just, or friends. I've got friends that I check in with on a regular basis. So those are the things that I do.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Quick story on this. Back to my first sales gig and knocking on doors, because this was a relevant experience and taught me a lot about efficiency and effectiveness. We worked literally 85 hours a week, which meant I knocked on my first door prior to 8 a.m. and I would knock on my last door after 9:30 p.m. And while there's a lot of lessons in that, just like anything in life, it can be easy to procrastinate on goals. Like there's no one there watching you knock on doors. Like it was really up to your own self-motivation, how hard you worked in those hours of time. And there were a lot of folks that, would underperform because they would, be lackadaisical during the day. And then they'd realize they were behind and they would try and knock on a million doors, at night to catch up for the day. And that was part of my problem for my first couple of summers doing that job. My third summer, when I ended up being number 2 out of 3,000 salespeople in the entire company, I really focused on a little tool we had called a goal card. And this goal card took the day, a long, long day, and broke it down into much more edible 2-hour increments of time. And each 2-hour increment of time, I had a goal set for myself. During 2 hours, I would challenge myself to talk to 5 families. So I had to knock on a lot of doors to find 5 families that might actually open the door and talk to me, and to actually sit down with 2 of those 5 families and to hopefully have one sign up for some of our educational tools and resources. And by setting that, and then every 2 hours, I'd roll my goal card over so I couldn't see that goal card. Part of my goal, that time frame was done. 2 hours was over. Now it's on to the next goal periods. Now it's 10 a.m. and I have until 12:30 to crank out my next 5 and 2 and 1. And so every 2 hours, instead of procrastinating to the end of the day, I was consistent. I was hitting my controllable targets every 2 hours. And suddenly I start to net together really consistent days in production, where every day I was having 5 to 10 customers. And then all of a sudden I was, showing up as number 1 every single week on our Pacesetter reports in top production. And it wasn't because I was a ninja sales guy that was better than everybody else. I was outworking the competition on an hour by hour basis because I was consistent and I had a goal card. And so from there, when I coach clients, I talk about creating your version of a goal card. Now, not everybody needs to break down their day into 2-hour increments with goals. That was a very production-based job when a very simple one where your only job is to go to the next door. A lot of us have more complex jobs than that. And so it may make more sense to break it down by day than by hour. But the longer you go without reflection, the longer you go, the more chances for procrastination exist. And so if you're setting a weekly target, just know that gives you a lot of days to not hit your daily target. So if you instead decide to hit a daily target for your activities, it gives you less time to procrastinate you can shift gears on Tuesday if you didn't hit your target on Monday, and it helps you net together more consistent weeks. So you'll see the person that has very consistent weekly production is because they're focused on daily activity. The person who has consistent months focus on weekly activity, right? And the person that has really consistent days focuses on hourly activity. So that's the correlation in how you set your goal cards. But focus in on the controllable activities and targets that you can actually accomplish. And it's okay to have a result in there if you want as well. And then put tally marks. And every day set a new standard and say, today, this is what I'm going to get done. This is my goal. Now I'm going to go chase it. And the more you can gamify your goals, the more likely you are to accomplish them. So hopefully that tool is a useful one for you. So I'm going to break for a second and just say, kind of open the door to Q&A. So I know we've had some other folks join. Jen, you're welcome to ask us questions. Melanie, you're welcome to ask any of you guys on the call. We can kind of use this as a wrap up brainstorming session. Then I'll tie up with a couple of last few nuggets here. So, go ahead, Jen.
I would just say that just as a testimonial, breaking down these things, you had me do that early on when we were coaching together, and just, taking my annual goals and reverse engineering it into what's my weekly target, how many clients do I need to lock in order to get my monthly and then annual goal? And it really is super helpful. I call it a dashboard, goal card, dashboard, kind of the same thing. And it really does help. So you set your annual goals and then you reverse backwards, with whether it's the weight goal or the reading pages per day or meditating 5 minutes every day or whatever. It's been helpful. It's super helpful exercise.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I'd say if you're a realtor watching this, we coached a realtor out of Atlanta who's pretty much brand new to the industry, and didn't have much of a personal network to lean into. And so we talked to him about doing it what you might call today the hard way. But the results were outstanding. And we said, look, you already live in a good neighborhood. Like, we're going to take literally the door knocking approach. We created a goal card. It wasn't like he did it like 12 hours a day, right? We talked a couple hours a day of just knocking on in the neighborhood and introducing himself. Helped him map out a really good script for just connecting with the neighbors and getting to know folks. And really the approach was referral driven. The result after a month of doing that is he ended up being in the top 2% in his office by the end of that year. Wow. He attracted so many deals because, people crave human interaction. And if you have a good approach, you put in consistent activity, the rest just takes care of itself. So we're not sitting here saying everybody needs to go knock on doors to create a real estate practice at all. But it is a find a way mentality instead of find an excuse. And other examples is if you do have a powerful network, like a client of ours up in College Station, it's leaning into that. And maybe you set a goal and a target for how many conversations or face-to-faces that you have with your hot network of relationships, where you ask for introductions. Who do you know that's whose kids are graduating college soon? Who do you know whose kids got kicked out of the nest and are going to college? Who do you know that's pregnant and going to have a baby in the next 6 months? Because you're getting ahead of the people who are likely going to have a home transaction in the near future. So there's all kinds of creative metrics that you can put around. Buffini talks about doing pop buys and putting some activity around that. And there's some successful realtors I work with that are just really consistent with their nurturing of their client database. So anyway, whatever it is, map out your controllable actions that drive your marketing, that drive your lead generation efforts. Because if you control your pipeline and you have a good flow, it's amazing how the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tie up with one thing here. And then we can call it unless other folks have questions. But this is a test. We're going to see who can get it right. Jen has promised a $10,000 prize to the person who answers this correctly. I'm just kidding. You like how I just put you on the line there.
There you There's no correct answer. That got me off the hook.
Yeah, that's right. I am your constant companion. I am your greatest helper or heaviest burden. I will push you onward or drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command. Half the things you do, you might just as well turn over to me, and I'll be able to do them quickly, correctly. I am easily managed. You must merely be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of all great people and alas of all failures as well. Those who are great, I've made great. Those who are failures, I've made failures. I'm not a machine, though I work with all the precision of a machine plus the intelligence of a person. You may run me for a profit or rub me for a ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me, train me, be firm with me, and I will place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Who am I? Any guesses for your prize?
Yourself.
Close. Anybody else? I am habit.
I am. There you go.
Team, if you're on this call or you're watching the recording, just remember that habit is the name of the game in 2021. Make that part of your word. And when you set your goals and create your business plan, remember that for any of it to happen, you're going to have to change your habits. You're going to have to break the bad ones and reform the new ones. And the best and healthiest way to do that quickly and ensure success is to put accountability around it, to have a powerful vision that drives it. And you'll find a lot of success this year. So thank you so much for having me on. Always enjoy this conversation and this topic, especially. So happy December, and hopefully we'll get off to a great start.
Hey, if thank you so much. If anyone is interested, whether it's that student coaching I mentioned or just the coaching that you do, where would they go to find out more?
Yeah, great question. Why don't I put that, where should I put that to make it easy for people to find? Because it's a little bit of a longer web address, but I would say that Jen can send you those details if you are interested. But I would say Southwestern Coaching is our website. And if you just go to Southwestern Coaching, the tabs underneath the coaching program give you opportunities to do a little homework on whether it's something you're looking into for your kids or for yourself personally with performance coaching. And you can mention Jen Hernandez's name, and that'll help it track back for us to have a conversation. So we do free planning sessions and goal setting sessions with folks as a way to kind of introduce the concept of coaching if that's something that you're into. So thank you guys. Awesome. And thanks for the plug, Jen.
Well, thank you for being generous with your time today. I know you did that as a favor to me, and thank you so much for being on. And Michelle's going to email you for that. I'll send it to the two people that were on. I'll send them the presentation, and then I actually wanted a couple of pages for myself. So Shelma, if you'll be able to make sure to send that to me, that'd be great.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the year, and happy holidays.
Yeah, you got it. You too. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Legacy Mutual Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity lender. The opinions expressed here do not reflect those of Legacy Mutual Mortgage.